No one knows what is tomorrow and what's going to be in a few hours. And this is a time that everything we learned how to stay positive. And this time it's a time to kick it in, to make it realistic. Instead of complaining how empty the cup is, how sad the situation is, but to make the best out of it. And for that, I bring you today 4 stories to emphasize that concept. So I'm going to ask, a few questions. Maybe before I start, you want to answer. I'm going to mention 4 questions. Number 1, how do you handle situations that disturb your schedule? Number 2, for an example, I'm sure everybody has their own personal story. We were supposed to have a wedding right before Passover. The last minute, the night before the wedding, they postponed it. That's a very big disturbance. It's something you're waiting your whole life. It came with lots of plannings, and all of a sudden it gets disturbed. Another question, how do you deal with obstacles on your path? What about sudden illness or other emergencies that force you to put your life on hold? If God wants, he could, even by us staying put, he could bring anything on us. 4th question is, this sounds almost like the Manishtana, we're saying 4 questions. When plans do not go your way, then what? So I'm going to start off with another joke. I mentioned a joke before, but a nice anecdote like this. There was a wealthy man. He threw a party and invited all of his buddies from all over the town, his neighbors. He also invited Max, the poor guy who doesn't have anywhere to go. In Yiddish, we call him a lish lamazel. He held the party in his beautiful villa, around the pool, next to his beautiful, beautiful mansion. As the height of the party, the host said, I have a 10-foot man eating gator in my pool. I give $1 million to anyone who has the nerve to jump in. The words were barely out of his mouth when someone jumped into the pool. Everyone turned in, and who did they see into the pool? They saw this guy, Max, the Lish Lamazel. They see him in the pool. Max was fighting the gator, kicking, throwing, punches, headbutts, check holds, biting the gator, biting the tail, flipping it through the ear like some kind of judo instructor. The water was churning and splashing everywhere. Finally, unbelievable, Max strangled the gator and let it float to the top. He then slowly climbed out of the pool. Everybody was just staring at him with disbelief. Can you believe it? Finally, the host said, well, Max, listen, you got the bet. You beat the gator. I owe you $1 million. Max said, no, that's okay. Forget about that. I don't want it. The rich man said, man, I have to give you something. You don't want the $1 million. I got to give you something. You won the bet. So he said, the rich man said to Max, how about $500,000? The guy said, no thanks, sir. The host said, come on, I insist on giving you something. That was amazing. How about I give you a new Porsche? Again, Max said no. The rich man is so confused. He said, well, you know what, Max? What do you want? Max said, I want to know who was the man who pushed me into the pool. So, this is a joke, but this is something in reality. God threw us now into a pool. It's called COVID-19, coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. We're thrown into it. And Shalom uvracha. We have a, how are you? Someone is joining by audio. How are you? And we have the choice. We could be like Max, say, who pushed me into this mess? Or we could realize we got into a situation and it's our choice to fall into the situation or make it a situation. The difference is, as we said before, there's two ways of looking at the cup. You can look as you have the cup is full or you have the cup is empty. And I want to share with you a story that happened not too long ago in 1967. There's a woman here in Brooklyn. Her name is Miriam Swerdlove. She attended a Chabad-sponsored convention for women and girls in the city of Detroit. After the inspiring event, she was waiting to board the plane to go back to Brooklyn. Miriam and about 20 other women learned that the flight was canceled. Why was it canceled? There was a snowstorm. The group rushed to a payphone. You know, it's 1967. There was no cell phones. And they called the Chabad headquarters in New York. They asked the Rebbe, what should we do? The leader of the group, Mrs. Miriam Popak, spoke with the Rebbe's secretary and told him that they were stuck in Detroit. He said, okay, 1 second, I'm putting you on hold. A minute later, the Rebbe's secretary came back on the line and said like this, the Rebbe doesn't understand. What is the word stuck? You're stuck in Detroit. And the Rebbe says like this, Mrs. Swerdlove answered like this, the Rebbe knows what stuck means. What the Rebbe was saying is, a Jew is never stuck. The Rebbe would play around a lot of times with words. You know, if someone says, I'm stuck in COVID-19 right now, I came into New York over 40 days ago for a wedding. Before I turned around, the borders of Jamaica is closed and I'm stuck here. No, I'm not stuck here. This story is coming to us. What do you mean? What does stuck mean? Upon learning of the Rebbe's response, the women immediately rose to the occasion. Listen to what they did. They're at the airport. Their flight is canceled. It's Friday afternoon, as soon as Sabbath. They spread throughout the airport and began handing out tea lights, candles, to any women, Jewish women they met. And she concludes that Friday afternoon, the amount of Jewish women that we encouraged to light the Friday night candles was amazing. If that plane wasn't canceled, these women would never light the Shabbat candles. So the lesson of this story teaches us, number one, you're not stuck at home. Saying we are, in a way, yeah, physically we are. But in our heads, it's up to us right now to do our best dreams we ever thought of. Ideas. You know, someone wrote, I'm now at home. It's a time to write a biography, to write about your life, things about what you want to do in the future. Time to reach out to family, cousins, friends that you didn't talk to in years, to organize the house. You know, there's so many things how we can make this COVID-19, not that we're stuck in it, but make the best out of it. Actually, you want to congratulate Herman, you're on the phone, right? You hear me? Herman.
Yes, I'm here.
I want to congratulate Herman, who took upon himself in the beginning of COVID-19, he purchased a pair of talit and he purchased a tefillin, which he's going to, I think you already put it on today. He's starting to put on tefillin every day, except Shabbat. Shabbat, we don't put tefillin, to make out the best of the situation. You know, now it's a time we could use the time, you know, we never had time to pray. Now it's a time to take it more, to connect to our soul, to God. If anybody wants to share another concept, thought from this story, please share it. I could. Unmute. So I'm unmuting you. Ainsley, I think you have to unmute.
All right, can you hear me?
Now we hear you, yeah.
Okay. I was privileged to send out a story yesterday about stopping to let us stop thinking about what we cannot do and think about what we can do, which is the same story of saying we are not stuck. We have to find new ways of how we live, how we generate issues and energies, and how we pray with more time on our hands, if we have time on our hands, and make a better deal out of what we have today. And I think we can, and I think we have to learn that what we have been given in the coronavirus is going to change many of our lives for the future, and we have to see how best we can make them work. It's not going to be what yesterday was. It's what tomorrow is about.
Beautiful. Now I'm gonna go to the second story.
It's a question of lighting more Shabbat candles.
Absolutely. Now is the time that everybody, everybody can light Shabbos candles. Your internet, you hear me? Everybody hears me? Yeah. So a second story is like this. There was a young rabbinic rabbi. His name is Abraham Glick. Okay? He was a student from Melbourne, Australia. He married a girl from Worcester, Massachusetts. And according to the Rebbe's instructions was that he should join his wife in Massachusetts. And, he should help out with the community over there. After a few years, they're living over there, a position opened up in Australia, and he was invited to relocate to Melbourne, Australia. He asked to receive the Rebbe's approval if he should move to Australia, and the Rebbe gave it to him. However, what happened is, you're starting to get to move somewhere else. Once he began preparing to move to Australia, he began to feel as if he were just treading water in where he was living now in Massachusetts. He had already wound up his activities there, but as he had not yet moved to Australia, he felt neither fully here, not there. He was not yet gone, and yet his mind was somewhere else. You can imagine, you're about to go on a trip, or you're about to move to another country. The current country you're in, you're not really there. Your mind is somewhere else. So during his personal, he had an audience with the Rebbe, and he told the Rebbe his situation. He said, Rebbe, I'm not here and I'm not there. I'm not yet in Australia, but I'm not in Westchester anymore. In Massachusetts, I already closed everything up. The Rebbe answered something so beautiful. If you remember, in Jewish history, we have a beautiful story like this. In the Torah, it says like this. We find that during the 40 years, the Jews wandered in the wilderness. They would sometimes stay in a place for even one day, right? The Jews they left Egypt, and they were going to Israel, and really they were supposed to go to Israel right away, but unfortunately the Jews sinned with the story of the spies. As we say in Hebrew, the Meraglim, and they were punished that they have to stay in the desert for 40 years. And who's going to take them to the Holy Land? That'll be Joshua. Yet, now when the Jews traveled, they traveled with the Mishkan, the tabernacle. And every time they settled in a place, they would set it up. So there was sometimes they would stay in a place for a couple days, couple weeks, couple years, couple months. But there were sometimes the Jewish people stayed in a place for one day. And can you imagine? They would put up that whole tabernacle, put all the vessels inside as if they were staying for a long, long time. And from this period, we actually learn, the Talmud teaches us so many laws, including the principle that if you find yourself in a place, even for just one day, it is as though you are fixed there permanently. And this teaches us that each and every one of our stations in life is significant onto itself. You shouldn't say, "Oh, you know what? My flight got canceled," or "Right now I'm here in this place." Even if here we're talking about it could be in the Talmud we were talking about specifically when it was one day. So here we learn something amazing. A person may find himself in certain places or a situation for a very brief period. And it may seem to him that merely on the way to some other place. Yet there is always something in that place or situation to be sanctified. Something that can serve as a tent meeting between heaven and earth. And this is something the Rebbe told him. One should never live their life as they are standing with a packed suitcase ready to go. We should always live our life presently. And something which is absolutely amazing, this is a story of Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, the previous Chabad Rebbe. He was on the way to travel somewhere in Russia. And it was a half an hour before the train is leaving. You know, before we go on a plane, we have, it's called flight fever. In Yiddish, we say Reise fever. And half an hour, you're about to leave your house, you're nervous, you're walking back and forth. Did I finish everything? Did I pack everything? Did I close all the air conditionings? You're normally it's not a time to sit down and have a meeting. The Rebbe saw his father-in-law, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, sitting down with a book, learning the most deepest parts of the Talmud. The Rebbe went over to him and said, afterwards, Ad kedei kach? There's a limit. How much can you say? He said, when I am involved in something, I'm totally there. So even though in a half an hour I need to go somewhere, but right now I'm present. Right now I'm studying this deep philosophy, this deep piece of Torah from the Talmud. How can I not, I taught myself how to focus in this moment. So this is something, what's the power of this story? This story is a little different than the first story. This teaches us to be fully present in our life situations. Even where one day, this teaches us how to live every day. Right now, the corona is over a month. But this is reminding us how to utilize every day that we have. In this story, the Rebbe provides a shift which can potentially have one cannot compare their mindsets and a level of emotional and energetic investment in a situation they see as temporary and feeling versus one they see as permanent. For example, when staying over in a hotel, if you're staying at a hotel, are you going to start giving gifts to all your neighbors over there? Not at all, because you're at a hotel. But when you move into a new neighborhood, you're going to go to all your neighbors and give them a pie. Say, welcome to the community. That is to say, our level of emotional, mental, material, spiritual investments in any given situation, relationship, endeavor largely depends on whether we see as temporary or permanent, as contributing to the primary, main, or the secondary, basically to focus. If anybody wants to add to the story, please share. I'm muting everybody. 1 second. How do we unmute over here? Unmute. Go.
I think the message really is that we must learn to live in the present and look to the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we can't live in the future in the present. It's what we do to confuse ourselves is we try to think that what will happen in the next 30 minutes. We have to think about what we are doing right now and look forward to what we know we are going to try to do in the future. And that's really a very important philosophical and mental condition to be able to achieve. And if we are able to achieve that, one of the things that leaves us is the idea of stress, because we don't worry. What will happen will happen. We are living in the present.
Right. And this is so important for for now, especially more than before. This is in general in life, but especially now in our situation, is it's making the best out of everything.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna. How about Amit, Rhonda? You want to say something?
Oh, I'm just, I'm
Okay.
so happy listening to all these words. I'm in my bed already, and it's just so nice to listen to everything.
See what up.
Okay.
Can I backtrack a second?
Sure.
Treasure Beach is
I'm on another call, so go ahead.
tourist community. And of course, everybody is devastated. Everything is closed down, shut down, people
Right.
without work.
Right.
The community of Treasure Beach is so wonderful that we found a way to employ about 20 women to make face masks. And they've been handed out to all of the vendors and people that are in the shops, given to them to wear. And now they're being sold just for a few dollars, about 300 J, to the general public. I think they'll be starting to go to Kingston now. The girls have made about 600 or 800 masks already. So just talking about when things are really bad, sometimes there's a way to make something good come of it.
Absolutely.
Employ the people and help all of us in the community by protecting ourselves and everybody else around us.
Absolutely. That's a great example. That's a great example. You know, right now people are saying how their businesses are shutting, and you know, and I saw a few friends of mine who are very, very positive people. They changed their whole business. They became all of a sudden the mask providers and hand sanitizer providers, and they're getting teams to go to offices to disinfect the whole place. Exactly, not falling in a situation, but making a situation. I'm now going to continue to the third story, and we have one more story that we could learn a beautiful lesson from. The story is when he finishes his missions. That's the title. The son of a great, kind man was hospitalized just before the high holidays. He went to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It was before Yom Kippur. On before Yom Kippur, the Rebbe would give out special honey cake. You know, that's the Jewish custom. When the Rebbe gave him the honey cake, the Rebbe smiled, and the Rebbe told him, you know, this man had his father was not well. He said, give this to your father, and may God bless him with a sweet and healthy year. The Rebbe continued, tell your father that when he finishes the mission for which he was sent to the hospital, God will send him out of the hospital. Can you imagine? The man is sick, and here you have a great rabbi in Brooklyn who tells him, tell your father, God, you know, doesn't do nothing for no reason. He is sick for a reason. He was sent to the hospital for a reason. The son went to his father, told the Rebbe's message. His father got so inspired that this man was talking to every single person he met in the hospital, you know, about Judaism, inspiring them. After Yom Kippur was over, the Rebbe asked his personal secretary to go to visit the man in the hospital. The first question he asked the man was, the Rebbe wants to know, have you completed your mission in the hospital yet? Years later, after this man has passed away, the family heard from one of his doctors who said that he had been deeply touched and inspired by this fellow rabbi who was in the hospital, and his whole spiritual life changed in the result of the conversation he had with this rabbi on Yom Kippur, when that rabbi, instead of being in synagogue, was stuck in the hospital. God forbid, not stuck. God sent him there. What is the meaning of this? We can imagine. This is a religious man. He wants to be, any person, religious or not religious. Yom Kippur, you want to be whole. And here he was put in a hospital. He had a medical condition. And the people around him were patients, were doctors, were nurses. And once he got the Rebbe's message, he began to see others not as patients, not as doctors, but as individuals brought together by divine providence. Everybody was in that room together by divine providence. Co-travelers on a journey, waiting to be elevated through spiritual interaction. The medical condition was simply the pretext for the real mission waiting to be accomplished. An illuminating encounter between souls. Another point to ponder is, most people in this person's situation would have viewed their being in the hospital due to a medical condition. Why, I'm in the hospital, I have a medical condition. And they would say it's an unfortunate setback, or one of the numerous occupational hazards of physical existence. If at all possible, we would seek to avoid or to reduce said situations at all costs. Preceding them would be a departure from our life's mission and our ability to be as productive as possible. Then we look at things different. A lot of times we fall into the situations, this man thinks, I have this medical condition. No, you are put over there for one reason, to be productive in your place. I'm going to end off with one last story that happened in the mid-1970s. And then we'll have a quick round discussion and we'll conclude. It was during the early years of this rabbi's name is Rabbi Israel and Vivi Daring. They were sent by the Rebbe to Stamford, Connecticut. Unfortunately, one of their children became very ill and was in the hospital for an extended period with other children to care for, including a baby. One parent had to always be at the hospital while the other remained at home. It was a trying time for everyone. And getting anything done beyond taking care of the family was very difficult. And he was a rabbi of a community. And all of a sudden right now, he's stuck with a problem of his personal child. At a certain point, Rabbi Daring called the Rebbe's secretary to issue the regular report of his activities. He humbly reported that because of his son's condition, he had spent almost all of his time at the hospital to the neglect of his numerous other projects and basically left his community members hanging. The line went quiet. This is on the telephone. A short while later, the secretary returned and said, the Rebbe said that certainly that God didn't make such a thing happen so that you should suffer or be anguished because of it. Surely you have a mission to do there in the hospital. Go find it and do it. Can you imagine? His son is ill. The Rebbe says, no. Your son might be ill, but this that you're in the hospital is for a purpose. It's for a reason. Now go find out what it is. Rabbi Daring got the message and began reaching out to Jews throughout the hospital. He was wrapping people in tefillin. He was giving inspiration, providing comfort for those in need. In that one conversation, his view of his situation was transformed, and he truly understood that every moment is a part of your mission, your divine purpose, which is something that the Rebbe had said more than one occasion. to sum up these 4 stories is like this. Whenever, wherever, however, we are with, there's 2 narratives how to look at things. The human and the divine. There's 2 glasses. There's 2 ways. We must never confuse the causes of life's detours with their reasons. There are many circumstantial causes that contribute to the detours of our lives, but there is always only one reason. God has a plan and purpose for me at any and all places and points of time. This perspective, when I look at it's God's plan, it allows us to maximize and optimize life's transitions, moments, and to infuse them with higher perspective and purpose. So this is something which is something that sums up all of these stories. How, it's something that Rhonda mentioned and Ainsley mentioned and Herb, was to maximize his times. To realize, there was actually a beautiful video. Maybe I could put it onto the screen so everybody can see. Let me get it out of here a second. So powerful. There is a way, basically, this man took a whole bunch of clothes and made a picture of a person in it. And you have 2 ways to look at it. If you look at it from down below, it looked like a big mess. But if you look at it from God's perspective, then it looks like a beautiful, beautiful picture. And that is something that is right now. That's, we can look at it. It's one big mess right now. The whole world, all our plans are gone. On the other hand, we can look at it as this is something amazing that's happening right now. And God is going to show this. I'm trying to find this video. If I don't find it here, I posted it on Facebook. Whoever follows me on Facebook, I'll send it to you individually because it's not coming up right now. Now, takeaway questions that we should take away from tonight's class is as follows. Number 1, think back a moment or a situation in your life that wasn't planned and seemed at the time to drill, it looked like it was killing your dreams. It was killing your plans. And look back, how did you react? And how did it turn out? And, what can we do to look back what happened in our life and to be better today? And number 2, how might we apply the perspectives we learned today to our current situation? In particular, what are some actions we can take or changes we can make to our current attitude or behavior based on the principles we outlined today? If we can, I'm going to unmute everybody. So anybody has something to add, love to add. And whoever is, we can't see your faces. It would be nice before we say goodbye, if you want to reveal your face. Like to see you.
They said we maybe had 61,000 Americans dead the first week in August. Well, it's still April.
Ainsley, you want to share something?
I think it's important to understand that what we sometimes think as disappointments are in fact the message that we should look seriously at why the disappointment and how can we make the disappointment become something of real great meaning. And so it really has happened to me in a number of instances in my life, and I am privileged to be able to say I have no regrets or no upsets about what may have happened and what did happen and how I've been able to be encouraged to overcome all of these. So yes, and I can say that sitting here talking to you in New York is an amazingly comforting experience. Thank you for calling this class together.
Thank you so much. I hope we're gonna do this for the next few weeks, and hopefully, we're now gonna take it more, talk about situation, how to be more positive, and eventually, we'll maybe anybody has suggestions what the next series ideas what we can discuss would be nice. So good night, everybody. Good to hear you. Good night, Herman.
Good night. Good night.
Good night,
Good night,
Rocco. Bye, Amit.
Good night, everybody.
And happy holiday. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. By the way, has anybody seen the night over Jerusalem with the Star of David and the 72 in the lights in the sky? It's worth looking at. Try to find it. Fabulous.
All right, we'll check it out. Thanks for sharing. All right, be well, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, Rabbi.
With pleasure. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Bye-bye.